Three things that we are going to talk today with Mr. Warikoo. Number one, how to build your business. He has done 27 crores in sales. So let's figure out if that is actually true and how did he do it. Number two, should you be doing content creation in 2023? What is the scope? What is the potential? How you should be starting? Which platforms you should be using? Where you should be focusing? Third and finally, where is Mr. Warikoo investing his money? And I will chip in and I will share my perspective. So super excited. Let's kick in. Thank you so much everyone for joining us. And today we have with us Mr. Ankur Warikoo. इंट्रोडक्शन शॉर्ट रखते हैं सर, so आप बता दीजिए अपने आप में अपने बारे में फटाफट, राइट, एंड देन आई विल इंट्रोड्यूस द टॉपिक.
हमारे पास कितना वक्त है. बट इट्स अ प्लेजर यार अक्षत, थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग मी. हमने पहले भी काफी बार बात करी है, बट आई एम ऑलवेज सो हैप्पी टू सी योर वीडियोस, द काइंड ऑफ क्वालिटी दैट यू churn out, and it's a joy and privilege to be here.
First time, right? You're being on my channel, so thank you so much for that time. You always start by saying nice things about me. I'm going to make this interview a little bit tough, right? In a way, and I'm going to ask you like point blank questions because even I want to get out this information. So hopefully, people who are watching this interview, they are going to learn more about how to build businesses, because that is one area that Ankur has really excelled in, right? And he's generating 27 crores in revenues. मैंने आपका ट्विटर थ्रेड भी पढ़ा था and a lot of people said कि आपको IPO करना चाहिए, so we'll talk about that as well. So that's one. Second, we are going to talk about future of content creation and where we are in content creation space. So Ankur has been one of the leading content creators in India, and I think one of the foremost, right, education oriented content creators. So we'll take his take on that, right, and for general chit chat hogi, right? So Ankur, question number one, right, and this is something that I'm very curious about, right, about a person who is from Delhi. His name is Ankur, and he ended up ordering like making 3,000 orders in 2022. So is that you? They did not disclose the name.
मैं नहीं हूँ. I don't order as much. You know what? I tell you what the genesis of this is. तो ये Instagram पे Zomato ने post किया year end review वगैरह, and then people started tagging me. ये आप हो. So I just went through that post and I just replied, Zomato, you are welcome. तो उससे लोगों को लगने लगा कि मैं ही हूँ, but it's not.
नहीं, so the management consultant in me, if I have to break it out, right, कि भाई it's like 9 or 10 orders per day, right?
Exactly.
And even if it's like 4,500-5,000 का खर्चा, right? So the person who must be ordering it must be making a lot of money. You are making a lot of money. Maybe I'm not saying that you're ordering it for yourself. Maybe you're ordering it for your team. But good platform to acknowledge that it might be you.
नहीं, but I agree with you. मुझे लग रहा है कि this is exactly like e-commerce, जहाँ बहुत सारे Flipkart और Amazon पे जो लोग order करते हैं, they are actually end retailers and they're getting such great discounts that they find arbitrage in buying cheap from the e-commerce and selling it at retail. तो कोई surprise नहीं होगा मुझे कि ये अंकुर जो शख्स है उसका एक अपना रेस्टोरेंट चल रहा है कहीं, और वो बस सस्ते में Zomato से खरीद लेता है और फिर actually में लोगों को बेच रहा है retail price.
So, sir, any plans of getting into restaurant business, starting your own thing like Mr. Beast, American YouTubers, etc.?
Yeah, I've been in the retail business through Groupon and Nearby so much to now know that I don't want to ever be in that business. It's a very, very hard business to run, especially restaurant. दूर से ना बहुत glamorous लगता है, and it's like, अरे वाह, you're making good food, you have this ambience, ये सब. But it is so hard to build a good restaurant experience, and hats off to everyone who does it and does it well. मैं अपना जिंदगी में उस पॉइंट पे पहुंच चुका हूं अक्षय, जहां मैं घिस के पैसे नहीं कमाना चाहता. मैं मेहनत करके नहीं, मैं स्मार्टली पैसे कमाना चाहता हूं. एंड आई वांट टू डू इट इन अ मैनर दैट देयर इज लेवरेज इन द सिस्टम. ये नहीं है कि अगर मैं 1 घंटा ना आऊं तो उस 1 घंटे का रेवेन्यू लॉस हो जाएगा और एनीथिंग लाइक दैट. लाइक आई वांट टू बिल्ड बिजनेसेस दैट don't require my time. They only ride on my experience and whatever I know. And that is at least not the restaurant business for now.
So on that note, I think this is a good segue to our first topic that we will talk a little bit deeper about, which is about building businesses. So you did roughly 27 crores in sales this year, which is amazing. Last year, आपकी growth कितनी थी? I'm not 100% sure, right? आप वो number quote कर देना. And you said a very interesting tidbit here that you don't want to like earn money by doing, you know, sort of घिस के पैसे कमाने वाली चीज. So can you help us understand a little bit more, because you have seen different aspects to running a business. As a Nearby was a very different business. Corporate life was a very different type of business where you were supporting other companies grow their businesses. Now you're doing something very different. So what, according to you, is a good versus bad business in your context?
So it's a great question. I think the reality of today's world, Akshat, is, and I say it with absolute respect towards everybody, it's actually very easy to make money nowadays. It is very, very easy. क्योंकि हम एक ऐसी दुनिया में रह रहे हैं जहां opportunities are abundant. Everybody with a smartphone and internet connection has the access to the same information, the same knowledge that anybody else would. It is pretty wild if you really think about it. Let's pick up somebody who's immensely successful, like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, कोई भी ऐसा इंसान. Think about it for a second कि वो इंसान वही same handset और इंटरनेट कनेक्शन यूज करता है जो आप और मैं यूज करते हैं, या करोड़ों और लोग यूज करते हैं. लाइक दे हैव नथिंग स्पेशल. ये नहीं है कि कोई सुपर पावर सुपर कंप्यूटर है जिसकी तरह से उनको कुछ और मिल रहा है. वो वही सेम आईफोन या एक हाई एंड एंड्रॉइड फोन यूज कर रहे होंगे, वही सेम 5G के कनेक्शन पे होंगे या वाईफाई पे होंगे, वही सेम मोटा मोटा स्पीड्स पे होंगे, एंड they are just accessing it the same way. Of course, the people that they know and all that is different. So it's very easy to make money. However, it is very, very hard to make that money grow to a large sum. Right. So today, what you see, like Zerodha, for example, released its results, like it's phenomenal. What scale that is, 5,000 crores approximate of revenue, 2,000 crores of EBITDA. These are wild numbers for a bootstrap company जो 10-12 साल से लगी हुई है. So if you ask me, where I am right now, or where most of you will be, let's say in a job or in a small business, if you don't put intense pressure on you, you can actually have a very nice, happy life. जहां आपकी जिंदगी की सारी जरूरतें पूरी हो जाएंगी, सारी इच्छाएं भी पूरी हो जाएंगी. अगर बहुत ज्यादा पैसा नहीं चाहिए, फालतू चीजों पे पैसा नहीं खर्च करेंगे कि नो जबरदस्ती एक हमने मर्सिडीज खरीदनी है, BMW खरीदनी है, लैम्बोर्गिनी खरीदनी है, या महंगे महंगे फोन लेने हैं, या बड़े बड़े घर लेने हैं, या फार्म हाउस लेना है, अगर वो सब रैंडम शौक नहीं है, then you can have a very nice life where you give your kids a good education, you travel quite often, you will stay in a good place, blah blah blah, and you don't require a lot of money to get to that point. But if your ambition is 100, 200, 1000, 2000 crore, ये सब वगैरह, I don't know for what, then you need a very different mindset, a very different thought process. Right. And it happens through either of two ways. One, you use someone else's capital to build your own capital. This is what's happening frequently. I did that for 10 years, whether through Groupon Nearby, where you raise money from VCs, Shark Tank, ये सब वो चल रहा है, and you build it out. You're okay with burning money. You're okay at losing money. You're okay at being unprofitable for a really long period of time because you're growing so fast, वगैरह. But you build capital through capital. The other, which is the Gissu way, but also the way that India has at least seen it, because we are a country of entrepreneurs. We are a country of self-employed people. Most of the Janta who works in this country today are working for themselves and for a few other people. They have done it the hard, boring way, like जो धंधे वाला business होता है. You make money, you make profits, you reinvest back into the business, you keep growing, धीरे 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 करके. It's not cool, it's not sexy, it's not glamorous, it will never fetch you a media article, but over a period of time, it could grow to something big because you're smart about how you build that out. And that is what at least my ambition is. I am living a very different mindset from what I was the last 10 years. I do not intend to raise capital. I don't have a co-founder and would not need one or want one. I am supremely slow in building this out. I am not talking about it. I talk about what has been done, but people who follow me will see that I rarely talk about the future. I have a future in my mind, but I will not speak about that. क्योंकि कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. Like people don't want to know. I have this philosophy that don't tell people what you will do, just do it. तो वही है कि कर दो, और जब हो जाएगा तो एक रिपोर्ट पब्लिश कर दो. But मैं क्या करने वाला हूँ, that's just you feeling as if you've already achieved it, when the reality is you haven't. You're still far away from that. So the business is very different from what I've built in the last 10 years. No ESOPs for people, profit sharing from day one. So you have to be profitable from day one. You build a very, very lean team, a very small team. You almost call the shots and are very decisive about the strategy, but you give absolute autonomy in the execution, blah, blah, blah. And it's been joyful. It's generally been joyful. अगर आप मुझसे 2 साल पहले ये पूछते कि क्या तुम्हें ये करने में मजा आएगा, my doubts would have certainly been there. लेकिन आज तो दिमाग में कोई शक नहीं है कि this is something that I'm enjoying and I would love to do.
Absolutely, Ankur. So just setting a little bit of context, because इस बारे में बहुत कम बात होती है, right? Because people get the impression that the only way to do a business is that you go and raise money. I made a video also a few days back. I'll link it. Please go and check it. You will understand the definitions around what bootstrapping is, what a funded business is, etc. So you can go and check it out. But just setting some context here. So 2-3 FOMO वाले points हो जाते हैं, fear of missing out वाले. सबसे पहला FOMO होता है कि यार I'm not like, Ankur is making like 27 crores. Right? I am just a new content creator. I mean, in order to get like Ankur's scale, I'll have to spend like 15-20 years or something like that. So it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, hustle-bazi and whatnot. People start making bad moves in that respect. There's just like too much headache, right? Second type, at least in my case, when I got into content creation, I never even thought about money, and I did not even know कि पैसा बनता है content से. तो मुझे लगता है कि you just show up and you just talk about it. It's just fun. It's for your own memories. So I did it for that reason. So just to set some context, there was a very interesting report by Kalari Capital which said that most of the content creators, करीब 8 crore I think in India, and almost 50-60% of them do not make any money, and remainder 50% उसमें से भी उनकी average salary comes out to be 15-20,000. So right now people might be in their corporate job thinking that Ankur is making 27 crores. Let me also get onto that bandwagon of making money, but it is really tough. So anything that you would like to comment there?
I have only one thing, and this is something that I personally did, so it's the only thing that I would recommend.
Yeah.
And this is not just for content creation, anything material in life. आपको ये समझना है कि अक्सर बोला जाता है एंटरप्रेन्योर्स रिस्क लेते हैं, लेकिन वो झूठ है. एंटरप्रेन्योर्स रिस्क नहीं लेते हैं, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स रिस्क समझते हैं. इट्स एग्जैक्टली सेम थिंग विद द इन्वेस्टर्स एज वेल. लोगों को लगता है कि जो स्टॉक मार्केट में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, जो क्रिप्टो में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, वो रिस्क लेते हैं ना. वो रिस्क समझते हैं, एंड अगर वो सही से समझते हैं देन दे विल हैव देयर मनी ग्रो. अगर वो गलत से समझेंगे या वो शॉर्ट टर्म समझेंगे, दे विल हैव देयर मनी लूज. इट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल प्रिंसिपल ऑफ लाइफ दैट कैन नॉट बी शेकन. व्हाट आई मीन बाय दैट इज यू शुड नॉट बी फूल्स टू से अरे कोई X करोड़ रुपए बना रहा है तो मैं अपनी नौकरी छोड़ के कंटेंट क्रिएशन में घुस जाता हूं और मैं भी उतने पैसे बनाऊंगा. शायद हो जाएगा, लेकिन मोस्ट लाइकली नहीं भी होगा. सो द वे टू डू दैट इज टू मैनेज द रिस्क. एंड हाउ डू यू मैनेज द रिस्क? What is the biggest risk? The biggest risk in becoming a content creator is financial risk, because you may not make the money. Then there is also reputational risk. आपने कुछ ऐसा बोल दिया जो लोगों को पसंद नहीं आया, or it did not work out, then there is damage to that. Like you and I have been through that situation last year where there was reputational risk to something that we followed or endorsed and did not work out the way that we did. And all of those are going to be there. So you have to be supremely clear at how would you manage that risk. So here's a good example. My sister, she's 6 years younger to me. She loves dancing, and she has, for the longest time I know, been a terrific dancer. And she wanted to create content around that. But she's also a professor in Delhi University. She's done her PhD. She teaches students. She loves teaching as well. So she has that day job. But there is an other avatar of hers that comes about, which is about dancing. So I encouraged her, please go and create content around that. Like, you enjoy it. You also love teaching. You are a good teacher. Why wouldn't you do that? So people will feel entertained watching you dance, but they'll also learn something new from you, which is perhaps dance. So she does that. And I have told her two things. I was like, don't leave your job and don't be a fool. And don't make money from this as yet. So she's at 60,000 followers on Instagram, which is not trivial. And I've told her, until you get to 100,000, you are not going to make money from Instagram. She gets a lot of inbound. She gets like 5,000 le lo, 10,000 le lo, yes le lo. And I tell her, mat karo. But why is she able to say no to that? Kyunki उसे उस पैसे की जरूरत नहीं है. उसका पैसा उसकी डे जॉब से आ रहा है. तो पैसे की जो अहमियत है वो उसके डे जॉब से पूरी हो रही है. दिस इज समथिंग दैट शी इज डूइंग आउट ऑफ हर पैशन. लेकिन अगर वो अपने पैशन के साथ स्केर्सिटी भी बनाती है, which is that I am not going to say yes to anybody coming my way until I become big enough, people will actually anticipate that. तो सबसे बड़ा reason why people are unable to make money in life is because they make themselves more available than they should have to. You shouldn't make yourself more available. You shouldn't make yourself easy. It's like relationships में. अगर आप हर एक लड़की और हर एक लड़के को who asks you out हाँ बोल देंगे, तो आपको लोग हाँ पूछना ही बंद कर देंगे. You will not be asked out for dates because you're too easy to get. The ones who get the best are the ones who are hard to get. It's exactly the same human psychology. So you have to play hard to get. ये नहीं है कि कोई 5,000 रुपए आपको पोस्ट के लिए दे रहा है तो अपने पोस्ट भेज दिया 5,000 के लिए, क्योंकि फिर वो 5,000 पे ही अटक जाएंगे। आप उस 5 के कभी भी 50 नहीं मांग पाएंगे, चाहे आप जितने भी बड़े हो जाएंगे, क्योंकि वो इंसान आपको हमेशा वो 5 वाला ही देखेगा। So hold on, and that means you have to have a separate source of income that you can rely on. So my 3-step process: stick to your job because it pays for your financial security. Your nights, your weekends, your holidays, whatever it is, devote towards content creation, and don't sell early.
Right.
When you do sell, there will be enough and more people waiting for you in that wait list to buy, and that is how you will do it. First 1 year, and this is something that I personally did as well. मैंने YouTube जब तक मैं 500,000 सब्सक्राइबर्स पे नहीं गया था, I did not monetize it from a brand collaboration perspective. Instagram मेरा until I think hit 200K or something, I did not charge anything for it. My newsletter is already at about 100K. I do not charge anything. I don't sell it. My Twitter is at 550K or something. I don't sell my Twitter. Very, very rarely. Because I know there are people waiting. The people waiting say कि किस दिन इसका ट्विटर ओपन होगा फॉर पैसा, और उस दिन मैं जितना भी पैसा मांगूंगा ना, लोग दे देंगे, because they have been waiting. And that's how I play the game.
Absolutely, Ankur. So a lot of insightful information, but एक practical point है, right? And I'm speaking like from my own experience there also. कि ठीक है, right? I mean, we have like a little bit of money. We have created our emergency fund. चल जाएगी लाइफ, अगर 6-8 महीने पैसे नहीं आए या 1 साल पैसे नहीं आए, all that is cool. Now, if I have to make a switch from being like a full-time employee to being a content creator, then it's a success matrix, right? कि अगर यार मेरे को रेगुलर पैसा नहीं मिला, right? From my, for example, if in my job I used to make 1 lakh rupee, right? I will try like 1-2 years of content creation. How can I be sure कि मेरे को इतना पैसा मिल जाएगा, right? So because right now you spoke about certain metrics, but you getting to million, right? Probably in 2020, 2021 is very different from getting in 1 million in 2023. आजकल, you can just, no disrespect to like short form content per se, but shorts पे grow करना is much easier, right?
Yeah.
So even these external metrics, 100,000 ho jaye, then you monetize, or 200 ho jaye, then you monetize. Even that is getting harder because even the algorithm keeps on changing. So any risk mitigation frameworks or any way of processing this that you would suggest?
I think you said something very wonderful that I want to double click on. I've been in this industry now for a really long while. When I say industry, I mean just the startup world and content and everything. I've been creating content for a long while. And here's a huge difference, Akshat, between content creation 5-7 years back to today. 5 साल 7 पहले, you had to be really good and you had to be really consistent for a long period of time to make it. And you will see that all the OGs of content creation, whether it's Bhuvan, whether it's Sandeep Maheshwari, all of them have been at it for like 10, 15 to 10, 12 years or so. And so it's not trivial, that level of commitment. But today, the world has completely changed. You could literally have a short or a reel go into 10 million views on day one itself. कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि आपको वो पहला कंटेंट पीस है, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि आपको कोई नहीं जानता, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि आपका कंटेंट क्या है. It could pop and that could just drive a following that never ends. Which means, and that's just the way that I look at things, the opportunity for you to strike is massive and unprecedented.
Right.
It is no longer about the consistent long-term play. While that is beautiful for you to get to a great scale, you could pop on day one itself and change your entire life. And this means you have no excuse but not to try. Like, why wouldn't you try? Why wouldn't you start shipping out that content? Why wouldn't you go about making it happen consistently so that one thing will go and then the next thing you know, you're in the frame? What people don't recognize is the combination of content as a creative process and content as a business. And this is what I was trying to explain. Creative aspect काफी लोगों के पास है. एक फॉलोइंग की एप्रिसिएशन, एक एंगेजमेंट की एप्रिसिएशन, वो सब कुछ काफी लोगों के पास है. हाउ डू यू कन्वर्ट दैट इनटू बिजनेस? बहुत बहुत कम लोगों के पास है. एंड हियर्स एटलीस्ट हाउ आई सॉर्ट ऑफ इट. आई सी माय कंटेंट, और let me step back and say, if you create content, you can use it for two things. You can use it as a sales engine, and that means whatever it is that you want to sell, you can sell. You can sell something that you've made, you can sell something that someone else has made and you would want to endorse, but you basically can sell. But the other way that you can create content is to use it as a trust engine. And it becomes a very interesting specific because हमारे देश में trust is deficient. हम लोगों को आसानी से भरोसा नहीं करते हैं. we have been raised with the belief कि दाल में कुछ काला है. So we are always second guessing कि सामने वाला इंसान हमारे से इतने प्यार से क्यों पेश आ रहा है, कुछ तो होगा, कुछ तो वो हमसे चाहता है. But if you build trust in a trust deficient country, you suddenly have superpowers. So if I ask, hey, which is the most trusted brand in the country, and most people will say Tata. But it's wild that that trust gets Tata to sell us airlines, namak, education, housing, cars, chemicals, paints, कुछ भी. Like literally Tata बोलेगा कल मैं गोबर बेचूंगा और हम वो भी खरीद लेंगे क्योंकि वो टाटा का है. And that's the power of trust, which is not there in the West. West में you have to be an expert for you to be selling something. And I will not believe you, which is why conglomerates in the West are very, very rare. Like Amazon को हम Amazon की नजर से ही देखते हैं. कल को Amazon गाड़ी बनाएगा तो हम Amazon की गाड़ी नहीं खरीदेंगे क्योंकि Amazon गाड़ी बनाने के बिजनेस में नहीं है. And that is how you could use that content. What that means is, if you get that trust engine flowing, which is what at least I thought I had going for me, you then have to make something that gives you a passive stream of income consistently and predictably so that this trust can be monetized. What do I mean by that? In my case, and that's not the only example, in my case, I use digital marketing as that funnel. तो बहुत सारे लोग मेरे एड्स देख के पक चुके होंगे यूट्यूब पे, फेसबुक पे, इंस्टाग्राम पे, हर जगह. एंड दोज एड्स आर टॉकिंग अबाउट माय कोर्सेज. इट्स अ कॉन्शियस चॉइस क्योंकि मेरे लिए बहुत आसान है कि 8 मिलियन फॉलोअर्स से मैं उन कोर्सेज के बारे में डायरेक्टली बात करूं और उनको बेच के पैसे कमा लूं. लेकिन मैं वो नहीं करता हूं. सो एवरी single content piece of mine will never speak about my courses. They will only and only speak about either brands that I endorse or knowledge that I want to share through them or otherwise. But never about the courses that I have. Courses का एक अलग लाइन चल रहा है. वो ads अलग चैनल से चलते हैं. उनका मेरे से कोई कनेक्शन नहीं है. But because people have seen my content for years, seen the trust that is generated in their mind subconsciously or consciously, they react favorably to those ads. In a manner that very few people get that response. And that is the funnel. तो मेरा content business आज की डेट में मेरे लिए बहुत profitable है, लेकिन मुझे ये पता है कि वो कभी भी 10x of its current size नहीं बन पाएगा. लेकिन मेरा courses business जो उतना profitable नहीं है because there's a big expense of ads attached to it, I know that that can even be 20-30x of what the current size is. And that is where my focus will lie. This is one way that I use my content not to sell, but to generate that trust. And there are several such ways that you can use your content to generate trust and then have a passive income, which is far more predictable than कि ये 1 लाख रुपए जो आपको कमाने हैं हर महीने वो आएंगे या नहीं आएंगे.
Right. So quickly summarizing, and then I have like a few counter questions and slightly different viewpoint, which I would also like to highlight.
Please.
So point number one that you said was that you have a content engine, and then there is a trust engine, right? So content is your trust engine, and then you have a distribution around it. So that is how you're segregating it. मेरे केस में क्या है, I don't know, right? I mean, for example, I don't know how to sell trust, right? So मेरा ये होता है कि you just come in front of camera, you give whatever best you can do, you do it, right? So I'm not a matrix analyze करने वाला person, right? I don't have like a data analyst team looking at it, that how everything is performing, etc. I just come, I talk whatever I feel will add value to people, and people appreciate it. Super thankful for that. So my counter questions would be twofold, and this is a question that you might be getting also. कि यार आप ads दिखाते हो, right? So that's like one, right? मैं ad नहीं दिखाता, right? I mean, if I'm selling like someone else's जैसे endorsement अपन कर रहे हैं YouTube पे, so along with that, if we are tagging along our courses, so what is wrong with that? So a lot of content creators, especially when they are starting out, they're leaving their job, they might have to do it because they'll have to rely on organic distribution. So one aspect could be this also, right? I don't think that any of these aspects is incorrect per se, but in contextualizing, I think to get to like Ankur's scale and then making that decision, Walichi, is very few content creators now who are just like graduating from college and getting into content creation might have that luxury to do it in the first place, right? They might not be able to like, sort of do ads. So what would be your message to them, right? Because of course, this becomes like a little bit of a complicated topic to talk about.
Yeah. The only message will be that you have to realize then your growth will be a function of your organic growth on the content. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with that. Please recognize कि doing whatever everyone is doing cannot get you to expect a different result from everyone. That's not how the world functions. Like, that's a law of nature. If you do what everyone else is doing, your result will be the same as everyone else's. तो अगर आप एक certain growth rate से अपना content grow कर रहे हैं, whether it's following, whether it's views, whether it's engagement, whatever you're measuring, and you're using that content to also sell something that is creating passive income for you, तो उसकी growth आपके content growth से ही connected होगी. वो superficially और artificially ज्यादा नहीं हो सकती. तो I often hear content creators saying कि हमने अपना merchandise launch किया है, या हमने अपने courses launch किए हैं, या हमने अपना कुछ और launch किया है, and we are expecting 100% year-on-year growth. I like दोस्त कैसे होगा जब आपका content 15% से grow कर रहा है, तो आपका ये side of the business 100% से कैसे grow कर जाएगा? शायद पहले साल हो जाएगा क्योंकि base effect है, लेकिन हर साल तो नहीं होने वाला है. It will very quickly come back to that average 15% year-on-year growth. If you're okay with that, that's beautiful. Which goes back to the first thing that I said कि जिंदगी में खुश रहने के लिए ज्यादा पैसे नहीं चाहिए. And if you have your needs,
वहीं पे we'll talk, right? कि जिंदगी में ज्यादा खुश रहने के लिए बहुत सारे पैसे नहीं चाहिए. तो quantify करना अपन को, तो आप कैसे करोगे? What would that number be? Yeah.
So I have that number. For example, let's talk about Nearby. So Nearby, because I was a founder, I took less than market salary, and my yearly salary was 75 lakhs.
Okay.
This is what I used to draw. When I could, before Nearby, I was drawing about 1.5 CR or something like that. So it was a big dip, but in that 75, there was absolutely no problem at all in how we were going about our earning, our living, and so on. Today, as a company, my wife and I, as directors of the company, draw a salary which is 4 lakhs a month each. So we get about 8, and that means we have gone to close to about 1 CR cumulative between the two of us. This is frankly a lot of money for us. We are able to invest a lot of this money. We are able to do everything that we want to, and all our company reserves are still in the company. We technically don't think of it as ours. We keep deploying it and putting it into instruments that keep growing the money or using it to help others. लेकिन हम उस पैसे को नहीं छोड़ते हैं, तो वो रिजर्व बढ़ रहे हैं with every profit year coming through. लेकिन हम technically employees हैं उस कंपनी के, और हम 4-4 लाख रुपए लेते हैं. If you really ask me, हमारा पूरे उसका खर्चा, बच्चों की फीस, घर का EMI, रहने पीने का खर्चा, माँ बाप की मदद के लिए, ब्ला 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 ब्ला, आराम से प्री टैक्स 4 लाख रुपए में हो सकता है. तो हम 4 लाख रुपए एक्सेस ही ले रहे हैं, बट 50 लाख में हमारा पूरा खाना.
सर थोड़ा सा कॉन्टेक्स्ट सेट कर देते हैं, वरना बहुत फोमो हो जाएगा. हाँ राइट, सब डरने लग जाएंगे कितने पैसे, 1.5 करोड़, 80 लाख, 70 लाख एंड ऑल दैट. सो मैं अपनी थोड़ी सी स्टोरी सुना देता हूँ यहाँ पे. राइट, सो व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड माय करियर, सो आई वाज वर्किंग विद अ नॉन प्रॉफिट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इन ग्वालियर, द सिटी वेयर आई एम फ्रॉम. आई वाज मेकिंग अ सैलरी ऑफ 12,000 rupees, right? And I was saving 2,000 rupees on that, right? Because I used to live with my parents, right? And that has always continued, irrespective of how much money I have made. I keep on saving. There has never been situation in my life यार पैसे कम हो गए, अपनी सैलरी X है, my expense will always be X minus something, right? So that's the simple message that I want to give out, because यहाँ पे बहुत ज्यादा फोमो हो जाता है. That's part 1. Part 2, how is this relevant for you, right? People who are watching this. मेरे हिसाब से अगर आप इंडिया में थोड़ी बहुत मेहनत कर लेते हो, आप थोड़े से इंटेलिजेंट हो, पढ़ाई लिखाई में थोड़े ठीक हो, या मेहनत करना चाहते हो, या आप एटलीस्ट जब आप यंग होते हो आप मेहनत करके ग्रो करना चाहते हो, तो आप आराम से 1-8 लाख कमा सकते हो, राइट? इट्स नॉट दैट कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. एंड इफ यू आर मेकिंग दैट सैलरी, यू आर ऑलरेडी इन दैट टॉप 5% ऑफ रिच इंडियंस. सो दैट इज इट, दैट्स द नंबर दैट यू नीड टू हिट. उसके अलावा आई पर्सनली डू नॉट वरी अबाउट कि मेरे चैनल की ग्रोथ कितनी हो रही है, यू नो, हाउ मच विल माई रेवेन्यू ग्रो नेक्स्ट ईयर, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. बट यहाँ पे फ्लिप इक्वेशन ये हो जाती है कि समटाइम्स वी एज एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स, पीपल हु कीप ट्रैकिंग नंबर्स, we feel कि last year if we made 1 crore, now it is God's responsibility to give us 1.5 crores next year, right? Otherwise we'll feel very unhappy. So if such a situation comes, Ankur, in your life that, for example, content growth is zyada nahi hoti, right? You know, for example, next year if you write another book, right? And by the way, I have not read first of your 2 books, because दोस्त की book भी अगर पैसे खर्च खरीदनी पड़े तो क्यों, and आपने मुझे give up ही नहीं दिया. So in that respect, what is going to happen, right? How would you process that?
I have a very simple take on this, Akshat. Growth is often misunderstood, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. अभी Zerodha का, for example, and this is a good example. Zerodha के अभी financials announce हुए, 2000 crore profit कमाया उन्होंने. And they also, and Nitin and Nikhil are just so beautifully transparent in how they conduct the business. They also said कि हमने company के reserves कहाँ park करे हुए हैं. And most of them, not surprisingly, FDs में है, corporate bonds में है, gold में है. Basically, fixed income या safe instruments. तो लोगों को बस कुछ चाहिए था, तो people started tagging me. देख लो, तुम बोलते हो FD कहाँ गए? अंकुर वारिकू बहुत चौड़े हो रहे थे. यहाँ देख लो, सबसे स्मार्ट कंपनी इतने करोड़ पैसे कमाती है. Blah 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 blah. And one I said, yeah, I don't want to get into the argument because cash flows understanding is a very different thing. But here is a simple distinction. कंपनी के पैसे को कहां डिप्लॉय करना है इज अ मैटर ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिंग मनी. कंपनी के पैसे को कैसे ग्रो करना है इज अ मैटर ऑफ रनिंग द कंपनी. एंड दीज टू आर वेरी डिफरेंट थिंग्स. तो इफ आई एम एंटरिंग द माइंड ऑफ कामत ब्रदर्स, दे आर सेइंग कि we will grow the money through the business. So every year we have to make sure that we are getting that consistent cash flow. जितने भी आ रहे हैं 1000-2000 crore blah blah blah. And then जितना भी पैसा मिलेगा, we have to protect that money so that it's there for whatever reserves we want. It's the same way that I think about my life as well. If for the next X years I were to earn exactly the same number that I have earned this year, I would be the happiest person on earth. Right. Because I know that it is immensely profitable. Of the 27 CR, my EBITDA is close to about 6 to 7, if not more. And if I'm getting a surplus of 6 to 7, which is frankly way more than I know how to spend wisely, I will keep building a corpus, and that corpus will be invested to grow. So I will be one of the few corporate companies. Funny enough, I had a call with my the company investment manager in the morning, and he tells me, आप एक लौती कंपनी हो मेरे पूरे पोर्टफोलियो में. This is one of India's largest wealth management companies, जो अपने कंपनी के एसेट्स को मिड कैप और स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स फंड्स में डाल रही है. क्योंकि हर एक कंपनी हमें बोलती है कि डेट म्यूचुअल फंड्स में डालो, लिक्विड में डालो, और ज्यादा से ज्यादा एक लार्ज कैप इंडेक्स में डाल देना. बट आप अपने पैसे के साथ ऐसे खेल रहे हैं एज इफ इट इज नॉट. मतलब यार, मेरे ना कोई शेयर होल्डर है, ना मुझे कोई जवाबदारी करनी है, ये मेरा पैसा है और मैं अपने रिस्क के हिसाब से उसमें चलाऊंगा. दिस इज द वे दैट आई विल ग्रो, बिकॉज आई नो दैट दिस कंटेंट बिजनेस, I want to do it because I enjoy it. I don't want to do it because it's my livelihood. So if tomorrow I don't want to do it as much, or don't want to do it as aggressively, or don't want to grow it and blah, 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 I will be happy if I'm earning that 6-7 CR of surplus and then using it aggressively to keep growing. I don't need the business to grow for my wealth to grow.
Right. And that's, yeah, absolutely.
So, and just one thing, that's exactly how you are also talking about your journey. Like, if you continue saving, and you have that mindset of saving and investing, then it suddenly doesn't matter how much you're earning, because whatever you're earning, you're always investing. And that means that money is going to grow and pay for you as against the income that grows, because it may not be that your income ever grows as fast as your investment can. Like, किसी की भी salary 13-15% साल से नहीं बढ़ती है, लेकिन आपका इन्वेस्टेड पैसा 13-15% से बहुत आराम से बढ़ सकता है every single year if you were to not take stupid risks and just put it wisely. And that's the difference.
सर, इसमें एक नेचुरल क्वेश्चन आता है लोगों का, मेरे पास भी आता है कि you make a lot of money, what do you do with it, do you spend? And यहाँ पे एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी है. कल मैंने क्या ना फोटो पोस्ट करी थी जिसमें I was in a brand shoot and they had given me like a very nice jacket, nice clothes, what not. फिर किसी ने कहा कि अक्षत, you're making like a lot of money now, so therefore the rich life is getting to you. फिर मैंने उन्हें बताया कि यार, जब ब्रांड शूट्स होते हैं ना, तो जब शूट होने के बाद they take your clothes back, right? So किराए के कपड़े पे. So, but on a serious note, where are you spending the money? Right? Majority मैं तो invest कर देता हूँ, almost like 90-95% of money, whatever I have, I don't spend much. But what is your viewpoint on spending?
It's exactly the same as you, yaar. We invest almost all our money, and I've created videos on where do we spend our money. And if I were to analyze it, a bulk of our money goes into either learning or experiences. So we spend a fair bit of money on our kids' education. We send them to really expensive, good schools. Both my wife and I, we spend a lot in learning, buying books. We have an uncapped budget, and we keep buying books as much as possible, online courses. And we travel a lot as a family. We love doing that. And one big change that has certainly happened after we've started earning money is we've started traveling really well. And this is something that is genuinely a privilege. It's a joy, and I feel very grateful about it. So we will take business class flights if the flight is more than 5 hours. We will stay in really nice hotels. We will stay in really nice Airbnbs. We will go and watch tennis is something that we love, so we'll go and watch tennis matches and so on. तो हम बहुत अच्छे से वहाँ करते हैं, but इसके beyond ना कोई शौक नहीं है. गाड़ी किराए की है, घर ले लिया है और कोई घर खरीदने का शौक नहीं है, कोई और एक्सपेंस नहीं है बड़ा सा, कोई गैजेट से प्यार नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है. तो I'm really happy that our entire family has that mindset where we're not materialistic and we're not driven by that. वही सेम कपड़े पहनते हैं, वही सेम उधर पे हैं. So it's really nice that money is growing. But if you really ask me, what I don't have an answer to, so my wife and I are very clear कि हमारे बच्चों की एजुकेशन के बियॉन्ड हम उनकी कोई मदद नहीं करेंगे. And they are not going to get any inheritance. ऐसा नहीं है कि माँ बाप की जायदाद मिलेगी या कुछ ऐसा होगा. So we genuinely don't have an answer कि इस पैसे को जो हम इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं उसका होगा क्या. मुझे नहीं पता है. शायद बाद में पता चले, maybe we start a fund or a university or something like that, don't know. लेकिन अभी इस सवाल का कोई जवाब नहीं है कि ये जो पैसे इन्वेस्ट हो रहे हैं वो 10, 15, 20, 25 साल बाद इस पैसे का क्या होगा. But that's a wild bet.
सर एक क्वेश्चन आता है जिसके बारे में हम लोगों ने बहुत टॉपिक्स पे बात नहीं करी है, which is around like kids education. So you're sending your kids to like private schools, must be very expensive. A lot of people who are not into very high paying job, they do their best to educate their kids. Expensive education. So what is your viewpoint on expensive education? Then I'll share mine right there.
I know that you're homeschooling, Zain, and I know it's wonderful that way. I don't think the education is about being expensive or not. So we certainly don't send our kids for a status game. What I realized, and both my wife and I are aligned there, कि our school experience was frankly quite a disaster. कुछ सीखने के लिए नहीं मिला, एंड जो भी सीखा वो इसलिए सीखा क्योंकि दोस्त अच्छे थे, कुछ टीचर्स अच्छे थे, बट द करिकुलम वाज रियली आउटडेटेड. इट वाज जस्ट सच अ रोट वे ऑफ लर्निंग. इट वाज जस्ट याद कर लो और फिर एग्जाम में उल्टी करके आ जाओ एंड देन जस्ट नो होप कि तुम्हारे नंबर आ जाए. And we certainly didn't want our kids to go through that experience. हमें उनको कोई अरमान नहीं है IIT भेजने का या CA बनाने का या डॉक्टर बनाने का. वो जो करना चाहते हैं वो कर सकते हैं, उनकी जिंदगी है और वही डिसाइड करेंगे. The only thing that we were very clear of is we have to send them to a place where they are exposed to the opportunity that the world has to offer, and they are trained on how to think. That's it. And as the case may be, in at least Delhi NCR, there are very few schools oriented around that, and they all tend to be international schools. Right. So we had then no choice but to send them there. I was very clear, don't want to send it to a CBSE or a ICSE board school. तो that then became there. हमारे पास इतना ट्रेनिंग नहीं है जितना आप लोगों के पास है to homeschool. So and we really wanted, because both Ruchi and I wonderfully spent time in school with friends, traveling in a school bus, learning about life that way, that we wanted them to go to a community to hang out with other kids and to experience what social interaction would be. So homeschooling का हमने कभी सोचा नहीं, लेकिन ये है कि ऐसे स्कूल भेजना है जहां उनको सोचते कैसे हैं वो सिखाया जाएगा. And it just turned out that they are in that school.
Wonderful, sir. So मैं clarify कर दूं, because कई बार when I say homeschooling, people just take it otherwise. घर पे बैठा देंगे, कमरे में लॉक कर देंगे, and the kid will not even come out. So nothing like this. First and foremost, my goal as a parent is very simple, to give my kids a range of experience, right? Yeah. So my personal perspective is कि कई बार होता ही है कि when a kid goes to a school, they just gravitate towards a certain type of community. So that's वो जाता है उसमें. So my goal is to give range of experiences. That's a second. जैसे मुझे वेस्टर्न कल्चर में एक चीज बहुत अच्छी लगती है, इंडियन कल्चर में बहुत सारी अच्छी चीजें हैं, लेकिन one thing that I can pick from Western culture is कि they start allowing kids to work early, right? So with practical experience, you get to learn a lot of things. I have learned a lot of things through practical experience. So that is something that I'm trying to give my kid. Homeschooling का angle, जैसे Ankur said that बस में दोस्ती होती है, you dance, play, sing. So वो सब चीजें के लिए, right? What I'm trying, and we are not trained in terms of homeschooling. That just comes with experience. Hopefully, we'll also get there someday and share our learnings as well as parents. But the way to address that is that you put them in like extracurricular classes, language learning classes, वगैरह. So some interesting things that you're doing with your kids' education, if something you would like to share, because a lot of parents watch our channels as well. well. This is a very requested question. So 2-3 tips if you would like to give there.
One, I think the only tip that I would share is we just let them be. We genuinely let them be. And I have always believed that kids are extremely smart. They are so wonderfully absorbing of what is happening around them that if you were to surround them with the right messaging, you would never have the need to tell them what to do. And that means that we have to become the embodiments of what we would want them to also act like. So we are very clear ki, respect is something which is extremely, extremely important. Respecting everyone irrespective of how they look, how they speak, where they come from, how much they earn, blah, blah, blah. Having a sense of accountability. You are responsible for your decisions. You're responsible for your actions. You're responsible for what happens to you. And you're also responsible for how you eventually react to them. So that is something that is there. And that's why we see ki, our kids will be the ones who will be playing in the mud and we couldn't care less. They'll be jumping in the muddy puddles after a rain. We couldn't care less. हमें ऐसा नहीं है कि बुखार हो जाएगा, सर्दी हो जाएगी, कुछ नहीं होला. अगर हो भी जाएगा तो वो भी एक एक्सपीरियंस है. उससे भी कुछ सीख लोगे और खुद ही अपने आप को इम्प्रोवाइज करके बोलोगे कि क्या करना चाहिए, क्या नहीं. So we let them be. And the other thing that we are so proud of is we from day one read to our book to our kids, because of which they now have a habit of reading, which is like ingrained in them. They learn from reading, they enjoy reading, they draw inspiration from reading, because I genuinely believe that books are the best way to get so much of abundant information that lies in the world. So that's another thing that's really worked.
So you are a social media star, sir. So have you ever thought कि kids पे pressure होगा, right? That your father is Ankur and school में कुछ pressure हुआ, people would know you for sure, right? So आपको लगता है, and what is there anything that you're doing to mitigate that situation?
I think what they see at the end of the day is that their father is just a very normal person and not very different from who he was when all of this was not there. They'll still see me joking around. They'll still see me dancing and cracking stupid poor jokes. They'll still see me exactly the same way. They'll see me respectful of people who come up to us and ask for a selfie or just thank or express their gratitude, blah, blah. So yes, they do recognize, Khaskar Vidur, who's now 11. So he's getting into that mode jahan uske dost bolte hain ki hum aapke father ke content dekhte hain, and that's quite surprising to me, but he has that. He sees that not as a point of competition or envy or jealousy, but as a point of pride. And he knows that at the end of it, इंसान वही है, इंसान नहीं बदला है, सर पे कुछ नहीं चढ़ गया है. और वो ही कभी-कभी बोलता है कि हमारे पास बड़ी गाड़ी क्यों नहीं है, because he of course goes to a school where there are rich kids as well, and they're surrounded by all these amenities, and we're like, क्योंकि गाड़ी is just a point A to point B thing, and आपको जो comfort एक Mercedes या एक BMW में मिलेगा, वही आपको इसमें भी मिल सकता है, but it's far lesser. And imagine what you could do with all the extra money that you can, and you help it grow वगैरह. तो he understands investing and blah blah. Uzma is a very different animal. She's very social. She loves the screen and she loves the camera in general. But I think she also understands the same way that Vidur does, that this is all temporary, and it definitely doesn't drive us as individuals.
So before closing out, last take rapid fire kar lete hain so that all the learnings get summarized. So one, like business building, what would be your 3 tips in 2023?
2023, I would say it's going to be a tough year for business, startup funding in general, and so on. So one, build for the long term. 2, be super slow in building it out. Take your time to make mistakes, learn from them, and get it there. And 3, which has never changed, whether it's 2023 or 2021 or 2057, the only person you are answerable to is your consumer/viewer/customer. अगर आप उसकी सुन रहे हैं, तो आप सही इंसान की सुन रहे हैं, and you will never go wrong.
Content creation, what 3 tips you would like to share, which are relatively less heard of?
I wouldn't say less heard of, but it's certainly a big shift. Number one is, please recognize that short form content is here to live, and you can't run away from that. It is a reality and a mode of consumption. So please pay attention to that in respectable manner, not as something that you will dismiss, ye to random TikTokers karte hain. Number 2, there is going to be even more and more emphasis on data. You can't run away from it. So if you do bring yourself.
You're giving these tips to me directly, it seems.
I know, it's like Akshat ko suna. But data is like, if with consistency you match data, there are very, very few people in the world who can do that and do that well. So it just adds like a massive superpower. And number 3, please expect new platforms, and those new platforms will come out of the blue, because the world is such that instant virality is now a thing. And that means whenever a new platform comes in, it will be your conscious call whether to join the bandwagon or not, and make that happen. My
any platform that you're experimenting with, Ankur, right now, looking closely into?
No, I'm really not. But I'm looking at, for example, there's a beautiful app in the US called Gas, which has exploded. It in the month of December was the most downloaded app, even ahead of TikTok and Instagram. And it's basically a school kids app. But the beautiful thing about it, it's anonymous, and it's to complement your peers in school, which is very different from an anonymous app that usually brings in toxicity. Right. So this is a place where Akshat will actually get complimented for all the good things that he does, and so will Ankur. So it's like this really feel-good thing that people are loving and they're tripping over. And it's a matter of time that something like a Gas will go global, or a version of it will come in India. So if it does, it's what you have to watch out for. The one unpopular thing that I often say is, and I've been maintaining that for the last 4 or 5 years now, and even more so, I think, going in 2023, LinkedIn is hands down the biggest arbitrage in social media right now. What I mean by that is, for the effort you have to put in, the reward is highest on LinkedIn. Right. Highest.
And Ankur, you started your journey from LinkedIn, right? Because I did the same. So from LinkedIn itself. So, okay. Awesome. Final question. Many people would be thinking about switching their corporate job in 2023. Akshat Goa mein settled hai, Ankur is making like 27 crores, this, that, right? So what is the FOMO hoga? So what 3 tips you'll finally share with them?
One, I'll encourage you not to quit your job. This is not a good year to quit your job. Don't quit your job. Instead, follow your passion, your nights, your weekends, your holidays, because that's a smarter way of doing it. Number 2, don't look at where people are. Look at what got them there. So if you are enamored by the 27 crores, please go back to my video where I say I was lost at 24. Go back to the video where I say that I have 5 months of money left in the bank. Go back to the video where I started all from scratch, because that's my journey. That will most likely be yours as well. So it's very easy for you to compare yourself with the end state, but it's the journey that is the true comparison. And number 3, it is actually a great time to be a creator. And I believe that the next 10, 20 years will see the world's first solo unicorn come out. Somebody who single-handedly has created value worth $1 billion or more. I believe that teachers are going to completely reinvent themselves. So if you know something valuable, either through your experience or through your judgment, then please share it with the world, because that is something that will get valued. And I do for a fact know that content will never, ever, ever die. We are a species built on storytelling, and the avatar or the medium may change, but the need for humans to connect with stories will never, ever erase. So if you are a storyteller, then you have it all through. Thank
you so much, Ankur. This went like a breeze. We could have chatted for maybe 2 more hours. So probably next season we will do something like that, right? So season ka bada chalan chal raha hai on like everything. So we'll probably make it a seasonal thing. But I hope anyone who saw this video would benefit, take out certain key takeaways. We would love if you can tag Ankur or me on Twitter, LinkedIn, because we spoke about these platforms, with 3 key learnings from this episode. It would reinforce whatever you have watched, and also will give us a feedback that what are the stuff that we should be talking about, and what are the key takeaways that people are taking away from our chats. Thank you so much for joining, guys, and see you the next time. And thank you so much, Ankur, for taking out the time.
Thank you so much, Akshat. Thanks always for having me.
Should I copy Warikoo? Okay, try karta hun. Okay. 3 things. Dramatic hua ki nahi hua? I think dramatic hua. Nahi hua? Okay.